after the Syrian president Ahmad al-Shara withdrew his troops from the southern city. And how does Israel feel about the US optimism regarding the de-escalation? Well, let's get some more analysis. We can speak now to Ruth Wasserman Lande, who's a former member of the Knesset and an expert on Arab affairs. She joins us from Netani, just north of Tel Aviv. Ruth, thank you very much indeed for joining us. A very basic first question for you, but why is Israel feeling the need to defend the Druze community in Syria? What's behind this?
Okay, so thank you for having me, first of all. It's an honor for me. And I would like to dispel some of the conspiracy theories saying that Israel has an interest basically in dividing Syria. That is completely untrue. On the contrary, why anyway, as you ask, do we have an interest in the Druze of Syria? First and foremost, we have a very amazing minority in Israel, a Druze minority, largely in the north of the country, all of them very loyal citizens and civilians of Israel, most of whom serve in the IDF, and some of them have fallen even in the war since October 7. This is like a brotherhood between Jewish Israeli civilians and Druze Israeli civilians, and many of the people in Suwaida are in fact family members of those Druze in the north of Israel. So it is expected by our own civilians, our own citizens, that the Israeli IDF would protect their family members from literally slaughter. And what we experienced in October 7th, which is similar to what had happened actually in Suwaida. That's number one. Number two, there was a ceasefire agreement between the Israeli authorities and the Syrian authorities, overlooked by the United States, stating and having been promised that there would not be going down by the troops or by Syrian officials southwards to Damascus. In other words, towards the area, in fact, where those Druze are, because Israel sees it as a kind of a buffer zone temporarily because of what had happened, because of security reasons, because of its fear of Daesh or very extreme forces, in fact, coming closer to the Israeli border. And that was simply broken. In other words, there were troops coming in as opposed to what was agreed upon with Israel towards that area. So those are the two main reasons why Israel was even interested in this whole happening. Not to mention the fact that this is an ethical issue. And I'm quite surprised that the entire world was not on its feet when girls and women were raped, massacred, burned, and killed simply for being Druze.
Indeed, and the world is also acutely shocked by developments in Gaza, watching the starvation of 2 million people. And I just want to ask you though about the idea that these are potentially hostile forces, and extremist elements in the Syrian government, because Israel has been giving the message out that perhaps normalization with Syria and normalization with Lebanon is not so very far in the distance. It seems a bit sort of schizophrenic on the one hand to be viewing them as so hostile they can't go anywhere near, they can't decide where they go in a sovereign country, and on the other hand to be entertaining the idea of normalizing ties with them. What's going on here?
I would love to answer, but before I answer that, I would like to address the sentence you have made earlier. Because you did make it and you did say that there was a starvation. So first of all, there's absolutely no policy of starvation of anybody. In fact, if you give me one other example of an armed conflict anywhere in the world where the arming party, which was attacked to begin with, is providing energy, water, food, and medicine to the people who attacked it, I would be very happy to hear, because it doesn't exist. In fact, there were very many experiments with the civilian population in order to make sure that despite all the difficulties and the obstacles, they do get the food and the medicine, the water. That's not easy. It's not easily done because Hamas doesn't want Israel to succeed in that. In fact, it wants those civilians, its own civilians, to be hungry and sick and sometimes even die because it provides them with the right PR in terms of public opinion, which is over horrific. I mean, there's no words to describe how horrific it is. And if they dare take the food that they are given, they are being shot at by Hamas. So hopefully you will not edit this and you will add my comment.
We certainly won't edit this.
You do add your own comment, and
we'll certainly leave that in. Certainly leave that in. But we do speak to humanitarian officials who are on the ground in
Absolutely.
Gaza. But that's a separate debate. But we're told about starvation. We're told that the food is not reaching the people that it should be reaching.
A lot of
Gaza.
the time, the food is indeed not reaching, but not because Israel has any wish to stop. On the contrary, it's putting a huge amount of money, energy, logistics, and the lives of many of our soldiers on the line to make sure that they do get the humanitarian aid. This is insane. There's a whole campaign, a whole company, an American company, Christian company, not even Jewish, that is taking care of that. Our soldiers are guarding that in order to make sure that it happens. So it is a lot of energy to be put into not getting that to the civilians.
Okay, let's get back to normalization of. Let's talk about normalization of ties.
Absolutely.
I mean, is Israel interested in?
Good.
Yeah, is Israel interested in normalizing ties with this government in Damascus?
Okay, so Israel has very little interest in having another war on another front with yet another enemy. And it is interested in discussing possibilities of ceasefires and a lack of war. The word normalization, or tatbiya, as it's said in Arabic, is not discussed, not because Israel doesn't want it, but because it's not on the table. Tatbiya between the people is not something that the Syrians or the Syrian current government is even interested in discussing. It's only interested in discussing issues pertaining to the security arrangements as overseen by the Americans between Israel and the Syrian government. And that is something that it's not only that Israel is interested, it's being discussed, amongst other things, in Azerbaijan and in other places. So yes, there is an interest, and it's not schizophrenia. It's cautious attempt to understand whether understandings can be made as per security issues between the current government, which was until recently groups of armed designated terrorists, as by the international arena, including many countries in the region, and very hostile to Israel and to Jewish people, not to mention the West. So yes, there is a cautious attempt to try and negotiate or reach some kind of security arrangements.
But this is, I mean, it feels a lot like a personal project of President Trump, that, you know, he really wanted to see a reset with Syria and to give the new leadership
Absolutely.
a chance. And, you know, doesn't therefore Israel need to tread carefully
Yes.
in this regard, and not to carry out airstrikes on the heart of Damascus?
Well, Israel has no interest in carrying out airstrikes on and in the heart of Damascus at all. But when you ask that question, the circumstances, zuruf, have to be mentioned. And the circumstances, zuruf, they are that people, innocent people, were being gang raped, including children, massacred, burnt, and killed. So again, Israel, having a brotherhood with the Druze population within the country, felt that it could not leave these people alone. No one in the entire universe set out to help them, but Israel did. We experienced exactly the same thing with the same extremist ideology on October 7th. Our people were treated in the same way in the south by Hamas, and we didn't want to leave the Druze alone.
I mean, there are concerns, and let's be clear about one thing, and I'd love to get your views on this. It doesn't seem that all the Druze are necessarily speaking with the same voice. I mean, do we agree on that? There are different opinions. And one Druze leader by the name of Saif Jarbour says that foreign intervention will not serve the interest of Syria's Druze people. I mean, do you think there is a danger? And I put this question to a guest earlier on. I'd love to get your opinion as well. Is there a danger that Israel's involvement in this and its perceived support of the Druze people will only serve in the longer term to deepen sectarian divisions? What do you say to that?
I would say that when there is a darkness, we need to be a light unto the nations. And there is a humanitarian, really humane interest in not having to have people massacred, raped and burnt for no reason at all. And yes, there are very few Druze that speak out against this, taking on the rhetoric of the current government in Syria, but they do not represent the vast majority of the Druze. And this is something that is humanitarian, human, and actually dignified responsibility of anybody that respects human rights. And quite contrary to the claims and the rhetoric and the narrative that we are in search of occupying or imperialistic taking of land, it is nowhere near the reality. On the contrary, Israel is a teeny tiny country interested in maintaining the safety of its own citizens, but it will not stand by while the Druze citizens of Syria are being slaughtered, while there are family members of people who give their lives in protection of Israel itself in the northern part of this country, which are the Druze citizens of my country. And I think that is noble.
The US Secretary of State Marco Rubio obviously has been involved in trying to dial down the temperature here, as have other parties, to try to broker the ceasefire deal, which we're being told is holding, although it's extremely fragile, as I think everyone seems to agree. He seems to think this is all some sort of a misunderstanding between Israel and Syria. Is that how you'd describe it and characterize this, a misunderstanding?
Of course, it's not a misunderstanding, but yes, there is an attempt by other actors, the most important of which is the US actor, to try and bring down the tension and to really try to not have a full-blown war, which is something that certainly the state of Israel is not interested in, despite what, again, propaganda and conspiracy theory holders are saying about Israel. So there is no misunderstanding, but there is an attempt to try and cool down the tensions, as you had so correctly put it. And it is a way of trying to do that, although I think it's an unfortunate word, but largely Secretary Rubio is very positive, trying to do a positive thing. We have a very good and strong friendship and alignment with the United States. But here, again, there is a noble setting out to try and have the people, the Druze people, citizens of Syria, and we respect that there are citizens of Syria. We don't want to take them. We don't want to take their land. We don't want anything of the sort. But that they should not be murdered, raped, and massacred is something that certainly is a noble cause for humanity in general, not only for Israel.
It was also the UN Secretary General. His comments stood out for me. He said he wants to see an immediate cessation of all violations of Syria's sovereignty. I mean, he appears not to be in agreement with what the Israelis have done here.
Who is not in agreement?
The UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres.
Oh, I see. So the UN Secretary General is very well known to have disagreements with Israel. In fact, people like the Iranian regime, the Shiite Iranian regime, and very high-ranking people within it are put as the heads of human rights committees within that same UN. So I'm not sure the standard upheld in the UN is the standard upheld by what normal nations should uphold, again, in my humble opinion, as a human being and as a mother of 4 children. We are talking about a massacre, rapings of children. They did nothing wrong. They did nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. They were just Druze and not Sunni and not belonging to the same sect as the government in Syria. And it is horrific what had happened there. And with all respect to the Secretary General, he also thinks that we should not have responded to the 7th of October. So I don't know what to tell you. If my children are attacked, God forbid, massacred, murdered, raped, or burnt, I cannot have a tiny doubt, you as a father, I as a mother, that we would certainly see the humanity and the nobleness of coming to the aid of these people.
Just looking forwards and where things head to from here, we have the ceasefire deal between the Druze and the Syrian government, and part of that is a unified committee that's going to monitor the situation in Sueda. So that appears to show that they are now working hand in hand. Does that mean that moving forwards, they don't need any further assistance from Israel, do you think?
So again, Israel is not going to bombard anybody unless there is a very specific threat to the civilians of the state of Israel and or very, very unrationally or inhumanely this kind of massacre that we had seen. So if we will see that there is not an attempt by anybody in Syria to do what they attempted to do to the Druze, of course, there will not be any more bombardments. If we will see that there are no preparations, army, military preparations on the part of the Syrians inside Syria to attack Israel, then no bombardments will be made. If, however, there will be preparations, yes, the IDF will do what is necessary to prevent it, because every government has the responsibility to make sure that their civilians are safe. We didn't do that on October 7th. More than 1,000 people were massacred, murdered, and raped and carnaged. I believe that we will not do it again.
Okay, well, we're going to leave it there. We're out of time. But thank you for speaking to us. Ruth Wasserman Lande, former member of the Knesset.
Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you for your time.
Bye-bye.